Listen, this may be a very difficult question to start off with, but from your perspective, why haven't we seen anything yet? I think there was a lot of anticipation that even as early as this past weekend, perhaps on Monday, that this retaliation would take place. So in your assessment, why the delay?
I think there are two factors. First is that Iran wasn't expecting the hit that occurred against Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas's political chief and leader in Tehran at the inauguration of the new president. So it caught them off guard. And it followed in quick succession, as you pointed out, the strike against Fuad Shukr, the Hezbollah number 3, and also the man responsible for building the missile force, which is the greatest threat to Israel at the current moment. And that's reason number one. Reason number two is I think that they wanted to set in motion a series of activities that would give them time to prepare and build the capability and decide internally what course of action they would pursue. So yesterday, they finished the last, I think, scheduled meeting of the Office of Islamic Cooperation, where they brought in regional leaders at the ministerial level to discuss the response to the incident and manage the consequences. So now I would expect we're in the window where a response is viable. I also don't think it's going to be limited to the Middle East. I think their capabilities exist and expand obviously beyond it, and will be expected to strike Israeli targets, civilian and government related, as well as potentially American targets and infrastructure outside the region, potentially even in the homeland. So I think all of that is set in motion. They weren't in a particular hurry. They are known to take their time. And I think we can certainly expect a response. And I suspect that we won't have to wait much longer.
What do you make of the rumblings from State Department, from White House? They seem to be trying to set the table, saying, well, we believe that Iran is actually rethinking this, perhaps because they don't want to, create a broader, wider regional war. So, there seems to be this effort to create a narrative within the U.S. administration that Iran is maybe thinking about moderating their response. Do you think there's any truth to that?
I don't. I think that's wishful thinking. I think the sources of that reporting are coming from the administration. It is the world they'd like to live in, but I don't think that's the world and the reality that we're in right now. And we only have to look at the incident that occurred earlier this week when 7 of our service members, 2 contractors, 5 active duty military were injured in Iranian-sponsored militia groups' attack on Al-Assad Air Base in western Iraq. That occurred during a Situation Room meeting of the National Security Council, which, as you know, is not advertised generally in advance. This was a lot more theater than substance. But the president, vice president, and the team were convened to discuss the situation, and we had 7 casualties during the meeting, and we've not responded. And I think that tells you all about the mood in the region and the degree to which the U.S. has established deterrence. It's an illusion.
Yeah, and we can talk. I want to get into that here, maybe in the second half of our conversation, in terms of U.S. response, U.S. treatment of Iran. But just looking at this potential for a retaliatory strike, when we talk about Hezbollah, in your assessment, how independent is Hezbollah from the Iranian regime, from the IRGC? Do they move in lockstep? Do they take their instructions from the Iranian regime? Or is there a significant degree of independence in Hezbollah's activities?
Yeah, so first, in the Middle East context, command and control is a flexible term. I think it never really applies in the sense that we would internally look at it. Under ideal circumstances, you're not going to get willing and able partners and allies to do your bidding exactly and explicitly as you stated. Hamas, Hezbollah, and the constellation of the Houthis, the axis of resistance, all have different relationships with Tehran. All of them are dependent upon Iran for material expertise, mostly funding, and certainly a broad variety of economic support. Hezbollah, though, is in its own category. It was the first. It's the crown jewel in the Axis crown. And it, as more than any other organization within the Axis, has the ability to act somewhat independently. It is the best resource. But at the end of the day, they are still completely dependent for their survival and sustained operations on Tehran. And so it is a bit of a give and take. I would add that Nasrallah, as a leader, also has a unique relationship in that, along with Soleimani before he was removed from the battlefield prudently, exercised a great deal of autonomy. Nasrallah also occupies a position where he has significant influence even within the Iranian system. And so he and the organization he sits on top of has a degree of autonomy, but at the end of the day cannot exist independently of Tehran. And so there is a bit of a give and take. No other organization enjoys that degree of latitude. The last thing I'll say is there are no circumstances in which Hezbollah would intentionally escalate a scenario without a degree of approval from Tehran and from the leadership there.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.